Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my patron requested review of the film Filth. This is a film that stars James McAvoy. It is written and directed by Jon S. Baird. I think that's pronounced correctly. And it's adapted from the novel by Irvine Welsh, the man who also brought us the novel to Trainspotting. So the patron who requested this review, he's also a member of the channel. He's been very generous to this channel, it's got to be said. His name is Zarate Ryan, and I gotta say, this film's been on my radar for some time, primarily because of the talent involved, particularly James McAvoy. But I know it has a reputation, or had a reputation for being quite full on, full of characters that perhaps, that are more than unsavoury, and that perhaps you won't ever really get a liking for. Now, if you didn't like Trainspotting, I would imagine you're not going to like this film. Not to say that there is a direct comparison there, but given the source writer, the dark places that he likes to go, that Welsh likes to go in his novels, if you don't enjoy going to those dark places, this isn't the film for you. So it follows this character of Bruce Robertson, played by McAvoy, who is a detective inspector. I think that was the designation, and he's going for a promotion. But the thing is, there is like 5 or 6 other police officers that are all up for this promotion. Now, this guy is about as deviant as anyone could possibly be, and he wants nothing more than this promotion, and he does all kinds of underhanded tricks to try and bring his teammates down and put him in the position of getting it. On top of that, we have this kind of side story that's going on with his wife, where it's played out as if his wife is very kind of, you get this promotion, you're back in my good books kind of thing. If you don't, then, well, no sex for you. That kind of thing. Now, there are some twists and turns along the way, some of which I saw coming a mile off, some of which I didn't. But ultimately, I think this is a story about someone who is in a lot of pain and can't deal with it, and more to the point, shame. Now, I am going to have to go into spoilers in order to kind of talk about this, I think. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers for this film, then maybe now is the time to step away from this review. I do feel like this is a film about shame, about guilt and shame, and this guy is living in shame. Now, it just so happens that I've recently done a course on those two very things, on the differences between them. So it's bizarre. Literally about about 3 hours actually before watching this film. So the stuff that I'd studied on this course that I was doing really was quite an eye-opener for this film. And I think it helps to know the difference between guilt and shame going in, and guilt is things we've done that are wrong, and shame is believing we are wrong. Believing that we are unlovable, we are unlikable, there is nothing redeemable about us. And I think that's really what this film is about. It's a character study on this guy who at some point has lost his wife for whatever reason, and that has created this huge kind of, huge bulk of shame in him, that he feels that he's not right. There's something about him that's not right, and so he disappears deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole of self-loathing. And when somebody does that, they corrupt the other people around them as well. Like I say, I think, and maybe to the film's detriment, in fact, in understanding this character. We don't know which happened first. We don't know whether he became this man and it caused his wife to leave, or whether his wife leaving caused this man, or certainly caused the shame, at any rate. I do think the film would benefit by having that clear distinction of knowing which came first, because the ability with which you can sympathise with this guy, I think, would hinge on that. Now, ultimately, when somebody is, you know, is very deep in self-loathing and in shame, what they need is people to love them, and in order to get out of it, and they ultimately, in the end, they have a choice to make as to whether or not they stay there or whether they get out. And what the film does very well is show us some, and mostly down to the performance, it's got to be said, by McAvoy, who is incredible in this. One of my favourite actors. This guy is not likeable at all. There's nothing this guy does that doesn't have ulterior motives, that doesn't have, you know, everything he does is there in order to try and benefit him, in order to try and forward his career, or what he thinks he needs or wants. But he's such a mixed up character, a messed up character. I don't think he even knows what he wants, not truly. Because of McAvoy's performance, we get these moments, these just the tiniest of moments, where it might be, and that's also related to another character that I'll just talk about in a moment. But there'll be a fleeting moment, a glance, a look in his eyes, the way the expression on his face changes, without any words, that tells us that, you know what, there is something still in this guy. There is some decency still in there, desperately fighting to get out. And it's those moments that, no matter what the depravity this guy gets up to, and he does get up to some seriously depraved things, like I say, he's just not likable. And I think it's, again, testament to McAvoy that in those moments where he has that look that tells you there's someone in there, it makes you root for him. Not in the devious stuff he's doing, but for redemption. It makes you root for redemption for this guy. I really want this guy to see the light, to find that redemption, to get to grips with this guilt and this shame that is clearly weighing so heavily on him. Now, whether he does or, well, I've already said spoilers, so I'll go deeper into that and say he doesn't. So ultimately, the film is a tragedy. It is a tragedy of epic proportions. I think it shows us what happens when somebody doesn't come to terms with that shame, that doesn't overcome it, and doesn't kind of wrestle with their guilt and accept it. And there's a few moments of that towards the end. There's one character in particular that he does try to some extent to make amends with, even though he still doesn't confess some of the things he did with him. But it's just not enough. It's not enough to get him out of that hole. And so ultimately, yeah, it's a tragedy. Now, the character I alluded to just a few moments ago is this character called Mary, and she's played by Joanne Froggatt, an actress who I really love. She's most well known for Downton Abbey. I loved her in Downton Abbey. She was always the character that was she just oozes warmth. If you want to cast someone who just oozes warmth, who you want to root for, who you want your main character to be with, your main male character to be with, whatever, she's the one. Cast her, because there's just something about her that just has that quality. And every scene that she's in, she's the one who somehow manages to get this little spark out of McAvoy's character that says there's something still human in there. And you feel like she's the ray of hope that will ultimately bring him out of that tragedy. And of course the tragedy there that is that she isn't. She's not enough. Like I say, I love that character. I love what she represents, which is what I was talking about earlier. People who are dealing with shame, wrestling with shame, who are falling down that rabbit hole, and shame is kind of really controlling their life. They need people in their life who love them. And I feel like, yes, we've got a few people in his circle of friends that are like friends, but there's no real love there. There is another character played by Imogen Poots. Now, she's one of the characters that is up for this promotion. And there's a really great scene between her and McAvoy's character where, now, again, it does start with her essentially, like before the tender moment happens, it starts with her telling him flat out, "You're disgusting. You're a pig. I hate you. There is nothing about you that even remotely I find attractive." And I don't just mean physically, but just like as a human being. So clearly, clearly, there's no love there. Like not in the same way as with Froggatt's character, but it breaks down this barrier that he has just for a moment, and they have this scene on the stairs where he's vulnerable, and we see again, in that vulnerability, and this is a key thing with shame, is that people don't like to talk about it. If we live with something, that if we carry that shame with us, we don't like to talk about it, especially with people we don't trust or don't like, because it opens up that wound and it makes us look at ourselves again with even more shame. And I feel like that's what's going on in this scene. She has this genuine moment where she's trying to help him and trying to listen to him. And you see a recognition there that, oh my goodness, this guy is seriously damaged and needs help. And she tells him to get help. But again, that shame, it bubbles to the surface. He pushes it down. He doesn't want her to see it. And so he lashes out. He verbally lashes out at her and goes. So like I say, all that stuff in the film I really loved, and I think it's a really great examination of those aspects of human life, of guilt and shame, and how they trap us into a miserable life. Now the problem is, as I said at the start of this review, is that this really does show how depraved one can get, and as a result of that, most of the time it does make it very, very hard to sympathize with this guy on almost any level. Again, performance by McAvoy, few simple bits here and there, just shows you that there is humanity in there, and so sympathy starts to bubble to the surface. But then he goes crackers and does something that is just absolutely abhorrent. It's a fine balancing act, really. I think if you're telling a story like that in this way, it's a very fine balancing act. I would say that actually they kind of do pull it off. My problem is I don't want to see that stuff. I don't. Some of the stuff this guy does to people and the things he says about people, I don't really want to see that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to identify with that. But in order to help someone like this kind of person, you need empathy, and I think that is the key to going into this film. Really, is to have empathy and try and understand where this guy's coming from. There's a saying that's it's hurting people hurt people, and that's a saying that's come up a lot recently in my life. Just a lot of the things I deal with, I've heard that saying quite a lot. Hurting people hurt people. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of truth in that. And I think that's, again, that's what this film is looking at. I do think there are a few red herrings in the film. Like I say, there's some twists. Like when we never see the wife and McAvoy together, and the way her scenes are always like this weird kind of breaking the fourth wall. She's talking to us, the audience, about him a lot, but her skin is extremely pale, almost as if she's like dead. And to some extent she is. Metaphorically speaking, she is dead to him. Or more to the point, he is dead to her. As far as she's concerned, he may as well be dead. And we see that in a scene later on in the film where they see each other and she just, nah, she's out of there. She don't even want to talk to him. And we see that she's with another guy, she's with another man, with their child, and so that's a very painful moment. But obviously by the time we get to the end of the film we learn she's not dead, but I feel like the film is setting us up for that. So we see flashes throughout the film in Bruce, the McAvoy character. He sees things a lot, he has visions, and one of them is of this kid, clearly a male kid from what I can see. Although when we see his wife, that they have a daughter, again, there's the certain things that are never explicitly spelled out to us, but it could very well be that they also had a son that they lost, and that is the reason he went down the rabbit hole and then she left him. Because as I say, when we see a child that is alluded to, that is his, that is alive, it's a girl, it's a young girl. So I don't know, I may have missed something. I'm reviewing this after just one viewing, but when we see the visions of this young boy, he's kind of dirty looking, clearly someone who died. It makes me think that maybe him and his wife had both a daughter and a son. The son died, and he couldn't get over that, and because of that, went on the slippery slope he went on, which forced his wife to leave him. But as I say, when we see the wife, she's always pale. It always looks like she's dead. So you get the sense that that's what happened. His family died, and he went this way. Turns out, no, actually his family's still alive. Maybe not all of his family, judging from that little connection I just made then whilst thinking about it. So like I say, it's quite a complex character study, but there's a few things that maybe aren't spelled out explicitly enough for you to get the full extent of that character study. But either way, I was intrigued throughout. I was gripped throughout. I was really engrossed by the performances. There's some top-notch talent in this. Jim Broadbent, Eddie Marsan, who's always great, and it's just and they all just do a bang-up job. Jamie Bell as well, really great in this. He has a bit of a character turn as well towards the end, which is, again, it's quite depressing in many ways. The whole film is really a tragedy. But I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5, just because, like I say, you get to the end of it and I wouldn't say I feel good. I think it's an expertly made film, brilliantly crafted, explores some issues very well if you're willing to look under all the darkness, under all the filth. There's a reason that the film is called Filth. If you're willing to explore that and look at the reasons why, then I think the film has a lot to say and is quite rewarding. It's just that I don't want to stay there, I don't want to stay in that world. And that's not to say it isn't without humour, because there are some moments in this film that did actually make me laugh out loud, I'm ashamed to say. Certain moments where I'm just like, I really shouldn't be laughing at this, but I just can't help myself. But then again, there's also a lot where I'm just like, oh, that's that's dark, and I'm just rooting for this. I'm rooting for a redemption that's never going to come. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5 from me. Thank you once again to Zarate for this recommendation, this request. It is a film that like I said, I've been meaning to watch. It's been on my radar, but it's just the reputation has always kind of been like, not tonight. I'll watch something else. So you've given me the kick up the bum I needed to get it done. And there you go, 3.5 out of 5 from me. But what about you? Have you seen Filth? If so, what did you think of it? Did you like it or not? Do let me and Zarate know down in the comments. Thanks for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.